Hey guys, it's Matt. About 2 weeks ago, my friend Brandy and I drove to Philadelphia City Hall to check it out, to film, and eventually make a video. Brandy was also, remember when I covered the Nashville Parthenon? She was the one that got us the images of the Athena statue and images around the Parthenon. And you'll see like little images coming up of Billy Penn, William Penn on top of the spire, Philadelphia City Hall. Just to give you how an idea how massive that is, supposedly, I don't know how they posit it in Wikipedia, it's like the largest statue that's up on a building anywhere in the world. So it looks like a little speck here. Even with these images, you don't get the perspective as to how massive this thing is. And actually, the Athena statue that's on the ground in the Parthenon is actually a little bit bigger, but it's not nearly as heavy as William Penn. Now to speak to the YouTube bot, the video coming up, it's my own images. Don't block it. I know you're trying to find a way to copyright flag me. These are my own images. It's stock music. Don't block it. YouTube bot, I know it sounds like Billy Joel. It's not Billy Joel. It's stock music from my Apple. Put the sun on it. I'm going to focus it on that statue there. All right, let's do the William Penn statue first. Here's a little William Penn statue at the top of the spire. By some metrics, this clock face is larger than Big Ben. Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. It's larger than Big Ben by some metrics. The Big Ben, of course, is on the Parliament building in London. So little William Penn, before we touch on the statue, just some basics. This whole building, built 1870 to roughly 1900 or 1901, about 30 years in the construction, towards the end of what's called this Gilded Age of construction. All right, let's go look at what's a construction photo. We'll come back to that later. I'll give you my take a little bit later on the impossible architecture. People say, Matt, your explanation is no explanation. Well, maybe not, but I'll still give you my take on it, which may be no take at all. Some people. All right, here's a little, in Philly, we say Billy Penn. We say Billy Penn. It's not William Penn, it's Billy Penn, if you're from Philly. These are full size. It's men. And this looks like a kid here, but these are men. So it gives you a perspective as to how large this thing is. Athena in Nashville has him by 4 feet. I think she's about 4 to 5 feet taller. But Billy here is about 20,000 pounds heavier. William Penn statue at the top of Philadelphia City Hall goes over 50,000 pounds of iron or some sort of metal. Was steel? I guess they had steel then. I don't know. But it's over 50,000 pounds. When it was hoisted up there, roughly towards the end of its construction, let's say 1895, at the time, it was the largest statue atop any building anywhere in the world. Guess what? In 2021, it's the largest statue atop any building anywhere in the world. So nobody got close to replicating this thing in 120 or so years since 1895. And I know for anybody screaming out at me, I can hear you. I can hear you. Shut up. I know he comes apart in sections. I know they didn't probably hoist the whole thing up. I'm aware of that, but he doesn't break down into individual iron filings, does he? You could take it, climb up. Spider-Man could climb up with pieces in his pocket. Or does Spider-Man have pockets? How does he carry his wallet as he swings through? Is Spider-Man in Gotham? Whatever. It doesn't matter. He doesn't break down into tiny little pieces. I mean, how much do you think a leg piece is? 10,000 pounds? It's still incredible. How do you even assemble it? He doesn't break down into iron filings. So it does support the impossible architecture argument. It absolutely does. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's see what else is here. Inside, I mean, it is just incredible. It still says in Wikipedia, I mean, it's just all marble, stone, granite. It still says in Wikipedia to this day, little Billy Penn up here, it's the largest, it says it just like this, freestanding masonry building in the world. It says it just like that in Wikipedia. Largest freestanding masonry. Are they trying to say something if you remove the word standing? I don't know, whatever. I just wanted to point that out. Are they trying to say something? Who cares? So I showed you how the Masonic Temple is. It's a castle right across the street. So, I don't know, let's look at the construction photo a little bit later. So it's still in Wikipedia that, I don't know, something ridiculously low. It cost $25 million to build, again, 1870 to 1900. This is before electricity and before the portable generator and all that, which supports the impossible architecture YouTube channels. And what else do I want to mention here? Oh, it still says in Wikipedia that in 1950 or so, Philadelphia toyed with the idea of getting rid of the building, but it would bankrupt the city. It says, quote, it would bankrupt the city to spend that much money that would be needed to remove it because of it doesn't say the pounds, but hundreds of millions of pounds and millions and millions of tons or whatever it would be. But the point is, it would bankrupt the city to remove it. I see. This is a truth drop. It's a truth drop of some kind. There's no way it would bankrupt the city to remove it. I don't care how heavy it is. In 1950, a good 10 years after the heart of World War II, they had all sorts of major explosives. Okay, you blow if they wanted to remove it, you blow the thing to Kingdom Come, and then you simply, they had big rig trucks. You could get it out of there. It wouldn't bankrupt the city. The point is, I don't buy the whole story. When you come around the corner and see this thing, it's this gigantic alien-looking thing in the middle of Philadelphia. There are some old world buildings around it. The Masonic Temple across the street is like a castle, so it's not completely surrounded by modern architecture. To a degree, it is, but it's just when you come across it, it's completely. There's no better word than alien. I'm not saying it was dropped off by the gigantic pyramid that landed in the movie Stargate or anything like that, but it's just it per the definition of the word alien, it's just alien. You're like even if you don't think the way we think, a business person walking by it, he just has that. Actually, they probably would have their head buried in their phone, so I take it back. But they would look up and be like, "Boy, that's strange. Boy, it's just this massive thing." So I don't buy that when this stuff is put in Wikipedia. It wouldn't bankrupt the city to get rid of it if you just have to blow it up into a gigantic pile, then slowly remove the pieces. The point is, it's so incredible, and you saw the video coming in. Why I don't buy the Wikipedia. I don't buy most of Wikipedia, what it presents. But who would ever say we should get rid of it? I mean, you can move, and they have moved a lot of the city hall functions across the street. I'll show you a picture coming up where they just shoved window air conditioners. There's no way to air condition it then. I'll show you how that was done. But they moved a lot of the city hall functions. They moved to modern buildings across the street or a few blocks down. Of course, it's still the city hall building. But I guarantee you, whatever municipal people that were in there in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they've moved a lot of them out where there's, they can get a cable internet and, air conditioning and things like that. So it's so incredible, the architecture. It's such a centerpiece, almost from a tourist perspective. There's nobody that would ever propose, the city proposed they wanted to tear it down, but it would bankrupt. It's a truth drop. It has to be part of the story. It has to be part of the Wikipedia. Nobody would ever think seriously about getting rid of this incredible architecture building. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The castle in Lower Bavaria or whatever in Germany, that the Disney castle was supposedly modeled after, whatever that's called. Be like reading a Wikipedia. Lower Bavaria, to make more room for the Oktoberfest, thought of getting rid of the castle. No, they wouldn't get rid of it. If anything, it would be an incredible tourist, destination. So it's total bullcrap what's in Wikipedia. Total manipulation. Why it has to be there, I don't know. We'll talk about that stuff some other time. Let's go to the construction photo. There might not be anything more than this. And this is typically what the reality gives you. It gives you, it gives its Goldilocks here. The people that want to latch on to Matt, haven't you seen the new YouTube videos? One guy in his backyard can move a 50,000-pound block, and people that want to, and Wooden Nichols presents it. I think he's been fair on all sides. I'm not saying anything about Wooden Nichols. He's presenting a fair presentation. All sides have to be looked at, but somebody that wants to latch on that, they had the means to build something like this, then it's Goldilocks reality. There's always one or two construction photos. So the people that want to latch on, that just men climbing up on ropes and gurneys and scaffolding with ropes and techniques on lifting heavy things, they'll give the reality will give you a few construction photos, but just not enough. So the people that want to latch onto the impossible architecture or even this old world stuff, this stuff was here before Billy Penn even arrived in what's called Philadelphia and before Ben Franklin made his way down from his printing business in Boston, made his way down through New York to Philadelphia. This stuff was just all here, but somehow all this old world stuff was hidden and covered up, and nobody made a note in it or diary. I have issues with that. But it just gives you a couple bullshit construction photos. The reality plays Goldilocks down the middle, so each group can latch on to what it wants to. Do you see the theme here? Do you see how it does this in every single breadcrumb that we chase? Is it time to maybe back up and observe, quote, the reality itself instead of the specific breadcrumb that we're chasing? My take on it, but I'll talk more about it later. Is there anything else here? No, even the inside. It's just incredible. So you see even inside through and through 700 rooms, the largest building in the world when it was built, and still to this day it's the largest. The certain metrics to 120 years later, it has more rooms than the U.S. Capitol building. Solid masonry, granite, marble, whatever, quartz. I mean, it's just solid. What you call masonry through and through. It doesn't have any steel support columns, and that is just what people don't think about is forget the building of it. How do you even quarry this shit in 1870? Giant, and how do you the gigantic perfect blocks that fit together perfectly, haul it in and all? It does support the Impossible Architecture, camp on YouTube. How do you even quarry it? So, I guess let me just collect my thoughts. And I don't know if I'm going to shut this video down or continue this endless light beer from Miller, tastes great, less filling debate that just, the reality plays Goldilocks. And whenever we dive into this debate too closely, it probably laughs all the way to the what. Because it's, in my opinion, it's a breadcrumb it's just like any other breadcrumb the reality lays down. It doesn't matter if this breadcrumb's heavy or not. To me, it's no different than, in some respects, it's no different than a Kit Kat Dash. This is funny as shit. They have like 100 modern window air conditioners shoved out of the windows. And I know these people deserve to work in an environment that's not 100 degrees inside, and then whatever the window air conditioners went in like the 60s. But you see is it the dichotomy, whatever word I'm looking for, the beautiful old style architecture, Gilded Age, and you have the window air conditioners shoved in. Well, how the hell's they all supposed to work? I hear you, but we have this theme that goes, and a lot of the other old architecture channels have pointed it out. Like you'll have like an old beautiful building and like this bullshit sign on it like Sam's Laundry, so this is where they get into the inheritors, and I don't go there, but there's evidence on both sides. Okay, why not go the whole way? Just string laundry lines out the building, come, do your laundry at work, there should be underwear and long johns drying in the sun, thrown out the window, have huge flags and laundry lines strung all over the building like Little Havana. I mean, go the whole way then if you're going to, I hear you. But guys, come on. I understand these poor workers, since 1965 don't deserve 100 degrees in there, but it is funny. You see what I'm saying? It just doesn't, the old world, again, it doesn't mesh with the new. And how about the guy that got the air conditioning contract in the 60s? Fred, you still waiting to hear from City Hall? Yeah. Whether the kids are going to have Christmas presents under the tree depends if I get that air conditioning contract. So the theme, even with the damn DylanAids.com lemonade, the modern day, there's a damn tent with a stupid ass lemon character, right in the same scene as the old world architecture. It doesn't go. The other Impossible Architecture channels constantly point this out, that the modern is always a reduction, an adulterization. It does always happen like that. I should show pictures of how they put the damn Flyers jersey on Billy Penn. They did. They put the Flyers jersey, some massive Flyers jersey. This is my old neighborhood by the Kingswood Apartments, and it's just a similar thing. You have this old building. This old stone building goes back to about 1800. I know they added the top floor and all that, but you just have these. You have these signs. It was just the same as when I was a kid. But this is an old stone building. The building just about a quarter mile down, the old Yankee Doodle Inn, was like a historic building from 1750. It hasn't been a restaurant. It's been closed down for 20 years. We're going to have fun in this last segment and bring on a reality breakdown. For that, I want you to notice the columns. All the way up, there's 3 stories of columns, and there's not just 1 or 2 of them. They're all over the place. These, who knows, they're all the way up the spire. 5, 6 stories, 7 stories, whatever, columns. They go all the way up almost to Billy Penn. I don't know what they are, like 10,000 pounds each. There's like 100 of them or more all over the building. It's over the top. So the over the top nature of this building, it's not just with the columns, it's with everything. Right? Here's where the reality breakdown comes in. You just picture, and you can do this with anything, the 7-Eleven job application, you can do this with anything. Who's the first person to get the idea that this should be done, whether, again, it be the 7-Eleven event or this fake event or that? Who's the first person to get the idea? And then who did he or she present it to? And how was it approved? This is where the reality breakdown comes in. So building starts building in, they say, in 1870. All right. So 1860, some city councils sitting around and saying, we need a new city hall building. Next up on the docket, trash removal was we just got through that. No, what's up next? We need a new city hall building. We don't like what Washington, D.C. is doing upstaging Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the home of this nation, the founding fathers. We need to bring the focus back on Philadelphia. We need a kick-ass marquee city hall building. It's like 1860, and everybody's like, yeah, we agree, pounding the tables in whatever they were using. Were they using Independence Hall as the city hall building in 1850? Who knows? So, okay, by 1865, we're going to have an architect picked, and then the plans are going to be submitted. Okay, here he comes. We picked Fred. Fred's now the chosen architect. He walks into the room in 1865, and what do you have, like a city council member sitting on the other side of the table? Fat guy, a girl that just wants to go home to her family, somebody that's hungover, just regular people, right? So he submits the plans. I'm assuming this architect's a man. He slides over the drawings and the sketches, slides over the plans, the blueprints to the city council. And in 1865, how does this get approved? See what I'm saying? And the first guy would look down at, if anything were normal, like the world that thinks the world is the way the normie thinks it is. The normie, this would break down, a reality breakdown for the normie, but they would never sit with me. They would never sit through this exercise with us. So, what does Philadelphia look like in 1850 at this time? Not a whole lot of buildings like this, right? Think of what it looks like. So the city council, they get the plans and the blueprints slid in front of them, and they're like looking at each other going, Fred, talking to the architect, we said spare no expense, but don't you think this is a little over the top? This gigantic, you're proposing, we did say spare no expense, and we did say we want the focus back on Philadelphia, but you're proposing hundreds of millions of tons of masonry, the largest freestanding masonry building in the world, the largest statue atop any building anywhere in the world, hundreds of marble and stone carvings, hundreds of 20,000-pound columns. We did say we want something marquee, Fred, but don't you think this is a little over the top? What's our budget for this again? As the guy looks down, the rest of his city council members, one guy's like sleeping. One guy down at the end is the same guy that declined Rocky's resubmission to box again with a boxing license in Philadelphia, or at least his great-grandfather. He's like, how much we going to spend on this? And okay, let's just say, Fred, we like, you shoot for the stars here. It's a little over the top. We didn't really expect to go here, Fred, but let's just say we get this approved and we have the money for this. And there's, at this time, there's like no taxes in the US and where do you get the money for anyway? Where do you get the people that can actually make this thing, Fred? Forget that. How do you even quarry it? But I'm going to assume you know what you're doing. Where do you get people that can do this sort of work? Last time I looked, they're not like sitting around in homeless shelters on Chestnut Street. Where do you get the people to do it? Well, sir, we have planned that out. The guys that built the Taj Mahal, those 25,000 artisans, Wikipedia talks, that built the Taj Mahal, they 25,000 artisans just sitting around in the streets and the slums of Delhi and Bangalore that they brought in for the Taj Mahal. Well, these guys have a craft and a trade. They passed that down to their great-great-grandsons. We know where these guys are. We can bring them in. You know where the people are that can actually build what I'm looking down and I see your plans here calling for? I mean, how long will it take to get these people in here? They're not just sitting around Chestnut Street, right? Well, yes, sir, they are all over the world. It's not anybody that can craft this sort of thing. So we got to send letters out to them. We got to offer proper incentive to get them all in. Well, what if they're in the middle of other projects? Well, they got to be patient, sir. If you want something like this built, see, at some point, guys, it becomes a reality breakdown. At some point, if it's just regular guys and gals in the city council, and somebody that's hungover and somebody that's worried about their wife cheating on them, I think in 1855 or 1860, as it's being approved, they'd probably slide the plans back and be like, it's a little too grand for what we're looking for here. Like, how do you get this thing approved? See, okay, I'm going around in circles, but it's so fun to go here Think of the 7-Eleven job application, guys. I could do like a whole month of the channel just if you just where the reality breakdowns when you think it through as to how this was approved. Who's the first? I'm just going to say guy. Okay, it makes it easier. Who's the first guy to get the idea for what happened with the 7-Eleven job application, the 2001 Space Odyssey event? Who's the first person to come up with that? See how the reality breaks down, where anybody's screaming at me like saying, well, it's interdimensional beings. Well, yeah, all that, of course. I don't take anything like that off the table. That's the whole point. If it's just regular guys and girls, it breaks down. So somebody came up with the idea, what is some Bilderberg meeting or some Eyes Wide Shut party, and says, John, I've got an idea. Well, maybe we can float this in the next meeting. I think we should build, see, it's all done before it was even built. We should build the largest buildings in the world. This would have to have taken place in the early 60s, probably. Matt, it's been planned out under the stars for thousands of years. Yeah, probably. I hear you, but I can't do a sidebar conversation every time. The reality breakdown comes where you present it as just regular people talking to regular people. 1960 or 1962, I think we should build the 2 largest buildings in the world, and then when they're being built, we should already have plans that they will be demolished in some sort of event that will, who's the guy that even presented this idea and who approved it? That's even creepier to think about. You know, people banging on the table, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it sounds good. Let's do it. See, it all breaks down. And we need to do a ton of videos on like, who's the first guy that came up with this idea? And then how was it approved? And then how did they get 1,000 people minimum that they would have needed that just the next week to be in on it to start everything in motion? It quickly becomes a reality, another reality breakdown, guys. It's breadcrumbs it would love you to chase and love us to chase the rest of our lives. I don't know about you. I'll continue to do this sort of exercise. But in terms of how they did it then, how it was pulled off, I'm not doing that anymore because there is no way to understand how it was done, how it was pulled off. But I don't, I'll put anything on the table, guys. But I still have a huge problem with the old world inherited buildings were here. Even from somebody like me that says the reality can just change or the Mandela affected, then if they're, I just still have an issue with that because those that present that theory, they don't believe we live in a giant Mandela effect where there's no difference between a giant building and a Kit Kat dash. They're still, if you're going to believe the world is completely real, then I have huge issues because there's like 100 paintings of old Philadelphia from the early 1700s that don't show this building, if you see what I mean.